In my life, a lot of people have asked me, who am I? I've always been asked the question, who are you? And while I could sit there and I could say I'm 20 years old, I'm from Quebec, I'm a streamer, I'm the best hacker in the world, that only ever encompassed what I was, not who I was. Because who I am is someone who never felt like he was enough. Someone who's always been doing everything he possibly could to try to improve himself in a way where one day he would be able to look in the mirror and feel happy. Someone who's always hated his body and wanted to look better. Someone who's always hated his way of acting and wanted to act better. Someone who's always found he wasn't funny enough, so tries to be funnier. Someone who's always felt he's never hype enough, so wants to be more hype. I was always someone who just wanted to push myself to a point where maybe one day I would be happy with what I am. Where one day I'd be able to look in the mirror and say, I'm Dantes, and I like the fact that I'm Dantes. But in the past, this was never the case. Even when I was 2,000 viewers on Twitch, even when I was getting 10,000 views a video back in January, even when I was the talk of the town and everyone seemed to like me, I never felt happy and I never felt content. I always felt like I could scream louder, like I could be more hype, like I could give more motivational speeches, and like I could be a better player. I always felt like I wasn't good enough, and as a result, all of these people who I was making these promises for were being let down. And it's because of that I mentally broke. It's because of that feeling of insecurity, that feeling that I was never good enough, that I ended up tearing myself down from the inside. It's for that reason that for months, I allowed this inner monologue that always told me that I should be better to just take over, and it didn't allow me to enjoy what I had. It only allowed me to envy what I could have. It never allowed me to sit there and say, you know what, I'm happy with the fact that I'm challenger. It always made me say I want to get rank 1. It never allowed me to sit there and say I'm happy with what I have, because I should always be better. I should always be more entertaining. I should always be a better role model. I should always be a better player and a better person. And funnily enough, it was always my desire for perfection that was the thing that ruined me. It was my desire to become perfect that broke me, that rendered me imperfect, so to speak. That desire to show everybody that I'm not that little fat kid anymore, that I wasn't that little diamond suck hacker main, that I wasn't that little small content creator. It was always that desire to push myself further that one day ended up taking everything from me almost. It was that desire to push myself further that made me sit there and take 300 milligrams of caffeine a day. That made me sit there and stream for 17 hours a day. That made me only sleep 4 hours. And it was that same desire for perfection that would make it so that when I'd go live, I'd feel anxiety. I would say, I'm not good enough for the viewers that I have. I don't deserve these people to watch me because I'm not as good as I should be. That always pushed me further, that always made me want to scream louder, that always made me want to get more hype, more into the music. And funnily enough, that was what almost killed me. For those that don't know, a few months ago, I was hospitalized. You see, after months of constantly pushing myself and having this stress of wanting to become better, of wanting to show everybody why I deserved what I had, that I ended up breaking. I would sit there and I would take hundreds of milligrams of caffeine a day, and I would never get any sleep. I would barely eat because I always said I could look better, so I never wanted to put on any fat on my body. I would need energy to stream for 15 hours, but since I wasn't eating any food, I had to compensate by just always taking caffeine. And it's for that reason that one morning I woke up clutching my heart and literally feeling like I was about to die. But instead of going to the hospital, what I did that day was I started stream. And after 2 hours of being in stream, and everyone seeing that I was in physical discomfort, and everyone begging me to end my stream, that I said, you know what, I'll stop. I'll end stream and I'll go to the hospital. I'll see what's wrong with me. And it was at the hospital that the doctors told me that in our blood there's this thing called BNP levels. BNP levels pretty much measure heart failure. A normal 20-year-old male like me has a BNP level of around 100. Above 5,000, it's near fatal. When I was admitted to the hospital, my BNP levels were at 7,000. I was probably 2 days, if not even sooner, from suffering a heart attack and dying at 20. But you want to know the crazy thing? It's that while I was in the hospital, because I had to stay there for a week so they could monitor me, it was while I was there and while I was laying in my bed that one day my aunt visited me. And she said, "How are you feeling?" And I responded, "I'm feeling fine. This is really good for my stream because I could turn this into an arc." And you might think I'm joking, you might think that this is an act, but it's not. For me, everything's always been about my stream. Everything's always been about being the protagonist, I guess, that I make myself out to be, and fulfilling my own desire of what a man should be. Someone who can sit there and be unrelenting. Someone who can sit there and have a goal and be able to just zero in on that, be able to overcome all obstacles and show everyone that anything is possible with enough determination. And so after a week of being hospitalized, I was let out. And the first thing I did when I got home was I streamed for 6 hours. And for every day after that, with a weakened heart, I would push myself to stream for 6 to 10 hours every day. My family was begging me to take a break. My viewers were begging me to take a break, but I couldn't. I told myself that since I can't lift and I can't progress my physique, the least I could do is progress my stream. Because if I'm not progressing, then what is even my purpose? If I can't become better than what I was, then I deserve nothing, and so I must always keep pushing myself to become better. And then one day everything changed. One day, a video released on Technoblade's channel talking about how he had died. And I remember sitting there watching it and almost crying. You see, I've never watched a Technoblade video. I've never really cared about the Minecraft scene. But the thing that destroyed me was that this young man who is near my age, who had built this legacy for himself, who had built this community, was able to die just like everyone else. And it's after I watched that video that I realized I wasn't invincible. That at the end of the day, just like you, just like people for millions of years now, and just like people for millions of years to come, I am mortal, and I can die. And it's hard to sit there when you're 20 years old and realize that you could have died. Realize that your family could have been at your funeral, that your grandparents would have to bury their grandson. And it's when I really sat there and I started thinking that I told myself I was going to make my health a priority. For once in my life, I was going to sit there and I wasn't going to push myself. I was going to allow myself to rest. I was going to allow myself to recover because I needed to. Not just for me, but for the people who love me. Whether it be the people who watch me, the people who support me, my family, my friends. For those people, I wanted to keep living. And so I had done something which I hadn't done in years. And I had taken a week off streaming to recover. And after that week, I came back. And I would sit there and I would still stream. But my streams didn't have the energy that they used to have, simply because my health wasn't at a point where I could push myself. I couldn't scream. I couldn't go crazy. I couldn't yell. And as a result, I felt like still deep down, I was letting people down. That I wasn't good enough for what I had, even though what I had was a fraction of what I once had. And it was during that time that I woke up one morning to a message that I was getting cheated on. That a relationship that I was in at the time, the girl I was dating, was unfaithful. And I remember sitting there after reading that message and feeling at peace. I remember feeling like it was good because now I could really start from the bottom. I could start from a point where I didn't have my health, where I couldn't lift, where I couldn't push my streams, and now where someone who I had trusted betrayed my trust. The beginning of another arc, if you will. But that peace didn't last for very long. That peace manifested into an anger and a hatred of who I was, a hatred of who I'd become, and a hatred of who I had allowed myself and forced myself to be because of my obsession with perfection. And I remember one day, after ending stream, I had went downstairs to eat dinner with my parents. And I remember sitting there at the dinner table with my mom and dad and having my dad try to make jokes. He was on his phone searching up these little dad jokes trying to make me laugh because he knew that I was having it rough. But I wasn't having it. Every joke he would make, I would grunt if anything, and I just sat there with a dead look, staring at my food. And I remember my dad looking at me and saying, every day you go on stream and you put on a smile for your viewers, you act like you're happy. And then when you end your stream and you're with us, we get this version of Dantes. The version of Dantes that doesn't smile. The version of Dantes that doesn't talk. The version of Dantes who's just silent. A ghost of what I once was. And I remember my dad looking at me and telling me to smile. He said, even if you have to force it, just smile. Put on a smile for us. But I couldn't. So I sat up, grabbed my food, and I walked towards my room. And it was when I was halfway up the stairs that my dad called out and said, why do you give your streams everything and you give us nothing? And for the first time in years, I remember staring my dad in the eyes and screaming as loud as I could, my stream is all that's left. And then I walked upstairs and I slammed my door. My mom and dad came up to my room a few minutes later. And it was then that I had the first real talk with them that I had in months, years even. The first time that I told them that I just felt like I was a failure, that I felt that I looked like shit. I felt like my entertainment levels were shit. Everything that made me who I was, everything that made me what I was, I just felt like it was nothing anymore. And I remember my mom and dad consoling me. And they told me it would be all right. And I remember my dad looking me in the eyes and telling me, it's okay, Dantes, because if there's one thing you are, it's the comeback kid. After that, I tried to find ways to make my stream more and more entertaining, but I still was limited because of my health. I couldn't push myself because my heart was still weak. And so I had to settle with stagnating for a while, which wasn't something that I was used to. But for my health and for the people that loved me, I forced myself to. After a few months of that, of stagnation, I remember sitting there one day and just feeling unhappy. Just feeling like things weren't really going the way I was hoping they would. And that it was getting to the point where I might have to re-enlist into school again for next semester. And I dreaded that idea, not because I hated school, but because I loved streaming so much. Because I loved being able to share experience with you guys, whether it be through streaming YouTube or Twitter, being able to share funny thoughts, funny ideas, analogies, gameplay, moments. I loved being able to share that. And the fact that I felt like I was coming to a point where I was falling off, where I wouldn't be able to do that anymore, it left me sad. And it left me heartbroken. And then one day Detention messaged me. And he told me that his dad was opening a bar in Europe and asked me if I wanted to go with him to EU to grind the ladder. I saw this as a way of being able to revive my streams again, being able to revive my life, this internal flame inside of me, be able to reignite a passion, be able to set a goal for myself, and be able to finally fulfill that goal and work towards fulfilling a goal, a feeling that I hadn't been able to feel in months. And so, we booked a trip to EU. And it was here, in the small town of Purmerend, in the Netherlands, that I was able to finally laugh again, that I was able to smile, that I was able to feel a feeling of accomplishment that I hadn't felt in months, a feeling of contentedness that I hadn't felt in years. of feeling like I was doing something great and putting out content for you guys that I was proud of. It was the difference between going live because I felt like I had to push my stream, and now it was something where I was going live because I knew that the content that I was putting out there would be something that would make you guys happy, that would bring you guys some form of enjoyment. It went from being something where I was forcing myself to upload content so that I could stay somewhat relevant, and now it became something where I was uploading content because I had genuine passion again, and I had genuine desire to entertain. And it was here in the Netherlands, in Europe, that I became happy. There were some nights that I would sit there and I would stream for maybe 8 hours, and I'd be very happy with my stream. I'd make farming Keck W's, farming Omega L's, being able to make people spam question mark when I'd say outlandish analogies. That made me happy. And then every day I would get back to my hostel and I would sit there and I would just comment the most troll shit on people's tweets. And I would get hundreds of likes. Everyone was enjoying it. And I would just sit there in my little pod, in my little hostel, giggling for hours, genuinely enjoying myself. Instead of sitting there and saying tomorrow will be better, I told myself today was great. That instead of going to bed every night, praying that tomorrow would be a new day, that I went to bed every night excited for the day to come. It was here in Europe that I was able to feel alive again. That I was able to feel like, finally, I have a goal to work towards. Finally, I have people who smile when they watch me. People who laugh when they hear a joke I make. People who are excited for my streams and don't just watch me because they're used to it, but watch me because they're looking forward to it. It was here in Europe that I went from gaining 100 subscribers a week on YouTube to gaining hundreds every day. It was here in Europe that I would post multiple tweets every day that would make people laugh and end the day with hundreds of new supporters and hundreds of new people that enjoyed my content. And it was here in Europe that I proved a lot of people wrong. You see, when I came to Europe, it wasn't with the goal of hitting Challenger and it wasn't with the goal of hitting Rank 1. It was with the goal of giving it my all and giving this grind my everything and being able to just enjoy the journey. It wasn't about the destination of hitting Challenger. It wasn't about the destination of a goal. It was about the journey that leads to the goal. It was here in Europe that I finally learned, after 20 years, that it's not about what you are, and it's not about where you are. It's not about the results you have. It's about the effort that you put into what you want to achieve. It's about being happy, not with the result, but with the effort that you put in. It's about not being happy that you got 90 on a test that you didn't study for. It's about being happy that you got 70 on a test that you dedicated hours of your life trying to learn the material. It was here in Europe that I learned what it feels like to truly be happy, that I learned what it feels like to truly love myself and truly appreciate how far I've come. It was here in Europe that instead of sitting here and saying, I could be better, I said, I'm happy at how far I've come. And for that, I want to thank you all. Not only for your support, not only for the people who watch me on a daily basis, and not only for the people who share my videos to their friends. I want to thank you all for allowing me to love myself. I want to thank you all for allowing me to be in a position where I can sit here and I can visit different places and I can make content and I can have you guys enjoy it. Because at the end of the day, I would be nothing without you. I wouldn't be able to sit here and I wouldn't be able to do what I love doing without you. It's because of you, each and every single one of you, that I'm able to do what I love for a living, that I've been able to become who I am, what I am, that I've been able to make the character growth necessary to get to a point where now I can sit here and truly be happy. So for that, I want to thank you all. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. You know, this morning I woke up and it was my day off streaming. And I just sat there and I was walking around the city center here, just listening to happy songs and smiling. Because for once in my life, I feel like finally I'm able to enjoy the journey and not worry about a destination that I haven't yet achieved. So, for all of you wondering what comes next, for all of you wondering what the next arc is going to be, what the next goal is going to be, the next challenge, all I'll say is stay tuned. Because for the first time in my life, I can honestly say that with the internal happiness that I feel like I'll finally be able to give you guys a level of content that none of you have ever seen before. A lot of things to come during this preseason, a lot of variety content, and even for next year, multiple trips planned, including NA, EU, and yes, Korea. I'm excited to see what the future has in store for us, and I want to thank each and every single one of you from the bottom of my heart for allowing me to have a future with content creation. With that being said, I'm glad that you all stuck around for the European journey, and I only hope that you'll be able to stay with me for all the journeys to come. I love you all, truly. Thank you.